Hello, everyone. Glad that you're here. I'm Jeff Schreifels, and I'm principal and owner of Veritas Group. I've been doing this work for quite a long time, but I absolutely love it. And I'm really happy to do this webinar with you today. All the years of things that we've learned, especially around mid-level, we're going to be able to pass on to you today. So I'm really excited about that.
Hi, everyone. I'm Lauren Centrella. I'm a client experience leader. So I work with clients all over North America and even in Europe, helping them build their major and mid-level giving teams and really connect and build authentic relationships with donors. And I love every single minute of it.
Awesome. All right, now before we get started on today's topic, I just want to share a little bit about who we are at Veritas. Some of you on the call may be pretty familiar with us, but for those who aren't, we're passionately donor-centered and grounded in a data-driven approach. And this dynamic is critical to the system, structure, and strategy that we have found to be successful in mid, major, and plan giving programs. And we believe that for your organization to actually achieve your mission, you need to shift how you see donors and their role in your organization, but that you also need to create partnerships internally and within your community. We've worked hard to ground our approach in objective fact, not just our personal opinion. We've formed our recommendations through insight from analysis of millions of donor records and the work with thousands of fundraisers and leaders. And we've gotten to work with some pretty phenomenal organizations over the years who have helped us learn and develop our strategy and approach. We hear all the time about how leaders and fundraisers are looking to bring in more major donors. And the truth is that you can dramatically increase the number of donors you're moving from major gifts without prospecting. So, our promise to you is this. If you follow our advice today, you'll move more donors up the pipeline into major gifts, improve retention of your mid and major donors, and better serve the donors who support your organization.
We want to start off by speaking to some of the common misconceptions that come up when it comes to finding new major donors. When we look at the consistent misunderstandings about fundraising and donors that we see across all types and sizes of organizations, they usually fall into one of these categories. It's hard to find new major donors. Today, we're going to be talking about some of the beliefs that lead to these misunderstandings so you can avoid these and create a healthier donor pipeline. The first is that it's hard to find new major donors. So there are a number of fairly common misconceptions that we come across in our work, and some of these may resonate with you too. Often leaders and sometimes even fundraisers themselves think that in order to find new major donors, the MGO must go out, they've got to find the new wealthy philanthropists in their area and get them to start supporting the organization. Or maybe your organization is over-focusing on wealth screening data, and that's the metric that you use to build caseloads or tier them. Perhaps you're filling your top tier of your caseload with donors who gave 10K, 50K, but they gave it a few years ago and haven't given since. And so you're not focusing as much on the donors who are actively giving and supporting you now. And, the worry with these misconceptions is that they can cost you money by focusing your time, your resources in the wrong places. Your organization and your MGOs end up wasting a lot of energy and effort, and ultimately your donors are the ones who pay the price for that. When we talk about prospecting, it always seems to come up finding new major donors that this is the idea that comes up. It comes, as pressure from leadership to go out and find these new wealthy people. But the result of this can really be disastrous. When we look at caseloads where fundraisers have been encouraged or even pressured to prospect, what we see is that caseload really becomes largely unqualified. And an unqualified caseload really makes the MGO's job challenging and really defeating because the MGO is trying to talk to donors who don't necessarily want to talk to them. can also hurt the relationships with donors who could be major donors and really potentially give significantly to your organization. When you are prospecting, it's likely that those individuals are not all that passionate about your cause, because if they were, they would probably already be giving. And when you ignore donors who are passionate about your cause, they tend to stop giving. We also see that prospecting can cause MGOs to leave organizations or even the profession entirely because it's difficult, it's not rewarding work, and it really leaves them not being able to support the mission that they care about. And this failed fundraising approach is really pervasive in the industry. It's hurting the nonprofit sector. It's causing donors to feel unappreciated. It's putting money first, and it isn't allowing fundraisers to focus on the actual passions and interests of their donors. So when we look at a healthy donor pipeline, this is what we would want to see. We want to see how donors are supposed to move into major gifts. As you can see here, the role of acquisition is not the major gifts program. Acquisition is typically part of the direct response efforts at your organization. From that point, you continue to cultivate the donor and move the donor up the pipeline. So let's go through each one of these just to set a clear foundation of the role of each part of that pipeline. So acquisition is really the lowest level of return, around 0.5 to 0.75. Your acquisition efforts really need to be diverse to create a diverse donor base at all levels of the pipeline. Cultivation is where you really start to see your ROI increase. It's around a return of 3 to 1 to 4 to 1, and it should be managed by direct response and really represents that one to many relationships. In mid-level, this is where we typically expect a return somewhere between 4 to 1 and 6 to 1. We view mid-level as a one-to-some relationship. So what do I mean by this? It's not like one-to-many like direct response, and it's not one-to-one like major gifts. Rather, we focus more one-to-one relationships in our tier A and find ways to make our tier B and C donors feel like they're receiving personalized pieces, while also finding efficiencies in sending communications in a more mass capacity. And then caseloads in mid-level tend to be around 500 to 700 donors, but we find the sweet spot for most organizations is around 600. Major gift typically expects a return anywhere between 4 to 1 and 12 to 1, but Jeff, I know you've seen some even higher returns in your time in this work.
Oh yeah, somewhere 20, 25 to 1. And in principal gifts, you can even see 50 to 1.
That's
So, yeah.
incredible. And as I mentioned earlier, these are really your one-to-one relationships. They're very personal, they're strategic, and again, focusing the majority of our time in tier A. And we want to end with a qualified caseload of 150 people. And our ultimate goal here really is to learn our donors' passions and their interests so we can align both our strategic plan and our impact pieces to really focus on those donors' passions. So here's what happens with many organizations is they have a direct response program, but are left constantly kind of searching for new major donors. As a result, they begin looking outside the program because they conclude that there's not enough major donor prospects in the organization. But the reality is most of these prospects are getting clogged at a couple of points in the pipeline. So looking at this chart, you'll see that a substantial clog happens at that 1,000 to 2499 level. These clogs in the pipeline are really what's causing fewer major donors to move up into major gifts. And so if you're able to unclog your donor pipeline and get more donors moving through the giving levels into major gifts, you'll see that it isn't hard to find new major donors after all. So the TLDR of what I just said is that your best major donor prospects are donors who are already giving to you. This is true because these donors are already passionate about your cause. They've already chosen your organization as something they want to support, and they're already knowledgeable to a degree about what you do.
All right, so the next common belief we want to address is the challenge many nonprofits face with really understanding and knowing what to do with donors as they move to a major gift caseload. will often answer questions about how individualized you should be with donors, what kind of touch points to share, and how often to communicate, and the role of direct response. While many mid level programs do not function at the same individual level as major gifts, our approach does take aspects of that and adapts them to the mid level caseload size and philosophy. The first thing to understand is that you move into more individualized communication as you move up the pipeline. Direct response is a one to many communication approach where you are sending the same thing out to hundreds or thousands of donors. In mid level, you're moving into a one to some level of communication. It's not as broad as direct response, but not as individual as major gifts. Then, major gifts is your true one to one communication. Achieving this one to some approach requires the right structure so it's manageable and meaningful. In our approach, we recommend the following: a dedicated mid level officer who is focused on managing a caseload of donors. That caseload, as Lauren said, is somewhere between 5 to 700, and they should be tiered A, B, and C. There should be a 12-month communication plan that is layered on top of your direct response program. This introductory series is a key step in the process of gauging with donors in mid-level. This series will help you identify incorrect contact information, learn if the donor does or does not want to engage, and hopefully begin to give you more information about the donor's passions and interests. Keep in mind that this is happening over a long period of time. In fact, it could take 6 to 7 months to connect with 1/3 of the mid-level caseload. So along the way, you're mixing in outreach using mail, phone calls, emails, small group video, and other options are available to engage with donors who begin to build that relationship. And as you can probably see, many of these are similar to the kinds of communications used in major gifts. So when you're thinking about what to do with mid-level donors, the major gift program can offer some great resources and ideas. Now, as you think about the one to some communication in mid-level, let's set some clear expectation and goals. In a mid-level program, the goal is to qualify the donors, identify if the donor wants to have a two-way dialogue with the organization, and learn what you can about the donor in order to identify which donors should move to the major gift program. Our recommended caseload size, again, is between 5 and 700, depending on the number of factors, and the caseload is fluid. You'll have new donors coming on, some donors being moved off, some donors being promoted, and some donors the mid-level team is cultivating further. Within that mid-level program, it's important to recognize that about 1 in 3 donors will say yes out of the pool of donors that you have. But this is valuable information because the mid-level program is essentially identifying which donors you want to interact with an MGO so the MGO doesn't have to spend time doing the qualifying. So a major part of what you need to do before moving a donor into major gifts is actually qualifying the donor, which can be done through a mid-level program. Tiering is an important part of your strategy because you only have so much time. So you need to use that time wisely. Initially, tiering for mid-level is based on revenue. And as you learn more about the donor, you can adjust the tiering to match the donor's interests, inclination, and capacity. Here's a visual to show you what a tiered caseload will look like. You can see in tier A is about 15% of the total file, B 25, C 60%. And the messaging is very personal as you are in the tier A, less personal as you get down to tier C, more strategic with tier A. So this is kind of a guide for you as you want to tier that program. Now, as you're creating your plan, there's some key things to do to help you manage communication with mid-level donors in a manner that will prepare the donor for the kind of relationship she might have in a major gifts program. You'll want to tier the caseload and shift your plan according to tier. For example, you can see under phone touchpoint protocol that the protocol for calling the different tiers starts with the most attempts to tier A and then descends. This is to keep the focus on top tier of donors who are most likely to move to major gifts while continuing to manage and engage with the rest of the caseload. This is a very similar approach to what we recommend with major gift caseloads. The key to what you do with these donors is, again, something we can pull from the major gifts approach. You want to mix different contact methods and types of interaction so that you are actively cultivating the donors, showing the donors the impact of their gifts, and learning more about the passions and interests of your donors and putting those opportunities to give in front of them. Here's an overview of the various types of touch points you can use in our communication plans to engage donors in different and meaningful ways. It's really important to note that you don't want to just be sending out a bunch of touch points like an in-house mail vendor. You want to be sending out information that's relevant and of value to the donor. That's how you'll get them to engage and build trust.
So the final belief that we want to address today is the idea that mid-level programs just aren't worth it. We've heard a lot of organizations, they really get tied up in the ROI of mid-level, whether or not it actually works, and if it can really have a significant impact on major gifts. So let's unpack why we believe mid-level programs are absolutely worth it. Mid-level is really the bridge between direct response and major gifts. Without it, it's really a struggle to retain and engage your donors in a meaningful way that will move them to major gifts. It's easy to think that only major donors need to be reported back to or told they're making a difference, but really all of your donors need to know that they're making an impact. When we don't tell them that their gift did something, they'll leave and they'll give somewhere else. In the mid-level giving range, this is happening because we treat mid-level donors the same as $10 donors, don't report back, and don't give these donors opportunities to be a bigger part of the solution. If you're still questioning if a mid-level program is worth it, let's talk about some of the key reasons we see for creating and growing your mid-level program. Mid-level donors are some of your most loyal. Gifts at this level are still significant and meaningful for the donor. So these donors are often very passionate and committed to the cause. Mid-level donors also usually bring in the majority of your net revenue. Again, mid-level is typically what we see between $1,000 and $24.99. And so these are large gifts or steady monthly donors. And even with a mid-level program, the cost of managing these donors and cultivating them towards larger gifts is low enough that they will continue to represent a significant portion of your fundraising net revenue. Simply put, your mid-level donors are really your future major donors. As we mentioned earlier, the best major gift prospects are donors who are already giving to you, and you don't need to look further than your mid-level donors. And so by investing in a mid-level program, you can retain thousands, maybe even millions of donors by dramatically improving donor retention with a key part of your donor file. We've worked with a lot of nonprofits and we've been doing mid-level work for many years. When we look at the data of organizations who don't have a mid-level program, we see about 0.2 to 1.2% of donors moving to major gifts. It's no surprise that so many fundraisers think that they need to look elsewhere for those major donors. But when a mid-level program is implemented, we can see 3 to 3.5% of donors moving to major gifts, which means you could see the number of good, qualified major donors almost double when you implement a robust mid-level program. Now, so everything we've been saying might seem nice, but I really want to enforce that this really does work, which is why mid-level has been such a hot topic for the past few years. When we look at the results from our clients, we can clearly see that a focused mid-level program with a dedicated mid-level officer really yields ongoing and impactful results for the organization. The bottom line here is that mid-level really is a big deal. It can make a huge difference in your fundraising efforts. When we work with our clients, we hear some amazing stories about how the organization is learning more about the donor's passion, how they maybe reactivated a donor, and about how donors who have really deepened their connection with the organization. And it's incredible. And we want this for you too.
All right, so let me ask, if you had a way to, if we had a way to teach you how to double your major donors, how many of you would be interested? Raise your hand. I can see a bunch of people. Okay, well, the next offering of our certification courses in mid-level fundraising starts on August 25th, and it provides a comprehensive training on the system and structure you can implement to grow a successful mid-level program by hiring and retaining the right MLO, establishing critical data systems, and integrating the fundamentals for effective and efficient managing of the mid-level caseloads, including evaluation and reporting, and how to smoothly transition donors to major gifts. Here's a note from a Veritas Group alumna about how this course impacted her organization's mid-level program. What Beth is basically saying is that this course gave her everything she needed to create a successful mid-level program, and it helped her identify her donors' passions and interests. So if you're looking to grow and start a mid-level program and take your work with donors to a next level, this really is a course you don't want to miss. And if you want to get the $200 off our upcoming course, which starts on August 25th, go to veritasgroup.com/courses and select certification courses in mid-level fundraising and use coupon code AUG25ML on the registration page. So Karen, this is a great time now to start taking questions from folks on how they can help their mid-level program.
Awesome. I got a lot of great questions here. Thank you all. Um, all right, we'll start with you, Jeff. What if a major donor says they will support and they don't want to be reached out to? What do you do?
They will support you, but they don't want to be reached out to. Well,
Yes.
then you honor their wishes. If donors are telling you how they like to be communicated with or not, that's a great thing because that donor obviously cares about what you're doing and is telling you how they best like to have the relationship with you. And so, one of the things that you could do is further ask them, what does it mean by that? Do you want to not get any of our newsletters? Do you not want me to reach out by calling? Would you like some other information about our organization? Or how about the things that you're supporting? Would you like an impact report? And so I wouldn't just say, I don't need to be talked to. You want to ask further questions because there might be things that they do want to get, but they just haven't thought about it. And even after all of that, they say, no, I don't need anything. I'm going to give you a gift every November because of this XYZ. Well, then honor that.
All right. So I see a lot of questions Q&A box. I'll make sure I won't. If they have said they don't want fundraising emails, how do we approach them? I don't think this particular pool wants phone calls either. So add to what you were sharing, just for Laura here.
I want to jump in there, and I want to say we don't want to write our donors' story for them, right? So I saw, I don't think that they want phone calls. So I think that that's where you ask that question, right? Like Jeff was saying, you don't want fundraising emails. Does that mean you don't want our kind of marketing fundraising emails? Would it be okay if I reached out to you by USPS to remind you of the anniversary of your giving, to make sure that you understand the impact of your giving? If there's a special project, how would you like to be notified of that? Would it be okay if I called you? I can leave you a message you don't have to answer. You know, there's a lot of like additional questions that you can ask here, but don't tell your donor's story for them. Make sure that you have the clarity and understanding of what they actually want.
Awesome. So, Lauren, you can be thinking about this. There's a question about what should be included in the survey template. But before we get, you think about that one, Jeff, talk about should major donors be taken out of direct mail? One of your favorite questions.
Only if they really ask to be taken out. So ultimately, for major gifts, you're at the real big ask is going to come from a face-to-face interaction usually. Um, but what we've found is that if you just assume that they don't want the direct mail, you will see your direct mail program probably lose in the hundreds of thousands of dollars
Mhm.
because even though they give from a face-to-face interaction, they are also still giving through the mail. And we make this assumption because we have this wrong idea of fundraising where we think we're bothering donors and we shouldn't send too much and we're worried that they're going to be upset. But in reality, even if donors are not responding through the direct response, they still like getting it because they find out about what you're doing through them. And so we've heard from a lot of major donors who are saying, "Don't take me out. I like getting it. I want to know what's happening." So definitely would not take them out unless they tell you, you know what, I don't need any more direct mail coming to my box. And then that's where I would clarify, well, would you like our newsletter though? Oh yeah, I still want to get the newsletter. I just don't want to be asked for gifts in the mail or in an email. So that's how I'd answer that, Karen.
Thank you. And Jeff, could you put it on the discount code page?
Oh,
Someone was asking
mhm.
about that. So, Lauren, back to can you recommend a good donor survey template? Talk a little bit about what we typically do.
Absolutely. So the questions that you would want to include in a survey or a questionnaire are not marketing questions, right? This is like my little soapbox of this is not a marketing survey. This is for you to serve the donor. So what questions are helpful for you to connect with that donor? You want to find out how they want to hear from you, right? Give them some options, phone, text, Zoom calls, in-person meetings. You want to find out what their passions are. What do they care about at your organization? But then I think including where we've seen really great responses are including general types of organizations that they support outside your organization. So if you're a social service organization, but this donor is also serving military veterans and they're serving educate K through 12 education, that helps you understand what part of your organization they might interact with a little bit more or they might care about a little bit more. And then especially for mid-level, I would really encourage a planned giving question. It can be as in-depth as your planned giving program is, or as easy as, yes, I've included the organization in my estate. I'd like more information about including the organization in my estate plans, or not at this time. We have seen incredible responses putting people into a planned giving program that, especially for this mid-level group, right? They're your dedicated donors, they're giving consistently. Those are the people who are great planned giving donors. So if you can include that in that survey, absolutely do so.
We have so many great questions, you all. We're going to keep it rolling. So,
Yeah.
Jeff,
Mhm.
what amount qualifies a mid-level gift versus a major gift?
That's a really good question. It really depends on the size of the organization. So I will say for most of the organizations, it's somewhere in the thousand, all the way up to 9,999, and then major gifts is 10,000 and above. But we see a lot of 1,000 to 4,999 and 5,000 above. And even for smaller organizations, we've gone down as low as $250 to 999 as a mid-level, where the 1,000 and above is major. So it really depends. And you can look at, if you did a pipeline analysis on your organization where you looked at how many donors at each different cum levels, you would be able to see where that mid and major is for you.
All righty. Um, so, Lauren, I've had a couple questions here about how do you suggest cultivating and stewarding mid-level donors as a small development team? I'm the only fundraiser in my small nonprofit. can be difficult to follow all those touch points, outreach points as a single person. So some similar questions coming in about that.
Absolutely. First thing is you will not have a caseload of 600. So you can just put that out of your head. When we're working with small organizations, single fundraiser, or maybe somebody who's doing multiple things, what we look at is the percentage of your time that you're able to focus on that specific aspect. And so if you're able to really only focus 50% of your time, perhaps on mid-level, you're going to take 50% of that 5 to 700. So maybe you're looking at a caseload of 300 people. And then what I'm going to say of like keeping on top of things is it is incredibly difficult. It sure is, especially if that's not the only thing that you're doing. Really strict time boxing is one of the things that I talk about. I also, be really honest with yourself. When I was doing this, I'm a former Veritas client. I knew that anytime after about 10:30, I started getting meetings popping up on my calendar. I had people walking in my office. So if I wasn't doing my phone calls and my follow-ups between 9 and 10:30, they weren't getting done that day. I don't love talking on the phone at 9 a.m., but you know what? In order to talk to the donors, that's when I'm going to do it. So I'm going to go, I'm going to get a coffee, and I'm just going to power through and I'm going to make the calls and talk to folks. Really hold that time on your calendar, in the same way if you don't, that you would if you had a scheduled call with a donor. Really protect your time so that you can get it done.
So back to your direct marketing
Yeah.
answer, Jeff. So should people still get direct marketing if they're being cultivated for a high value capital campaign? And you may have explained some of this, but I know I was reading questions. So how do you sort of
Yeah.
marry direct marketing with, let's say, some real strategic asks you're going to be making?
So you have to understand these people have been getting direct mail for many, many years. And uh, you just would assume that you're going to just continue the current communications that you're doing. But as you get to know these donors, some of them may say, "Hey, I don't think I no longer need to get all of that direct mail or all these emails from us." And then you would clarify, well, what would you like to receive? And go from there. Because as long in major gifts, if you now have a relationship with the donor where the the gifts that are coming are because of your one-to-one communication, because you're sitting across the table from them, and that's how they're giving their gifts, and they're telling you, I don't need this, that's when you would take them out of your direct mail or direct response communication. But other than that, and that's pretty rare, we don't have many donors that ask for that. So what you would need to do is just make sure that as a baseline, you're delivering everything you have been, even though they've moved up into a major gift status or whatever it is. If they're in a capital campaign, they still, like I said before, they still want to hear from you. And many folks love the direct response because even though it asks for gifts, it's also telling the donor what is happening at your organization.
Mhm.
And that's a good thing.
Thank you, Jeff. Lauren, how do you can explain between mid-level and major gifts and how it's different? This is a great question from Isabel. What would best practice be for how many times and in what period should you reach out without getting a response from a historical donor? So talk a little bit about how often you reach out at mid-level and then the qualifying for major gifts and what that looks like.
Sure. Yeah. So in a major gift program, there's seven. We look at a very similar series to the intro series that Jeff showed earlier, and so it's 7 steps. It's over a period of about, I don't know, 110 days that you're reaching out. You're doing it, like Jeff said, you're calling, you're writing, cards, you're sending emails, you're giving them lots of opportunities to respond to you, to share how they want to connect. And then in major gifts, they're really opting in, right? If they don't respond after 108 days and 7 attempts, they're telling you something. They don't want to hear from you. They don't need that personal relationship. And I'm going to tell you, in my experience, they've got your information. So if they do want to reach out, they will in 6 months, 10 months, a year and a half. In mid-level, it's really an opting out. So you're going to continue to engage with them because they're telling you they want to receive information. It's not going to be at the same cadence as the major gift plans, but they're going to get information from you and touch points unless they say, actually, no, thank you. I don't want your personal communication. What I'm getting through direct mail is fine.
Yeah. I think I would add to that on the mid-level is that even if they aren't responding to you personally, if they're giving,
Mm-hmm.
continue one's either retaining their giving or they're giving more, then we're assuming that that added communication from you is adding to their gift numbers.
Exactly.
So that's one thing on mid-level. And on major gifts, um, I just think that as you're building that relationship and you're sending out that information and you're getting to know them really well, they all will tell you how they want to be communicated with to the best way. So,
Mm-hmm.
uh,
Mm-hmm.
So, Lauren, how often do you communicate with a major donor versus a mid-level donor or in different tiers? Talk a little bit about rhythm.
Yeah. So a major donor, aim for once a month unless you know something different about the donor and you want to think through those touch points that Jeff showed you and how they tell your organization's story and build to an ask. Right. So you'll base your touch point plan on when the donor is going to give, when you're going to make a solicitation and plan from there. But if you know that your donor goes away for 2 months and is unreachable in July and August, you don't have to send anything to them, right? They've told you that I'm not around, I don't check my email, this is my break. Great. You don't have to do that. For mid-level, it's not quite as often. It's, 6 to 8 times a year. Again, you want to make sure that you're building in a cadence and different kinds of touch points. You're not marketing, you are sharing the impact that their gift is making to your organization. You're telling them how they're making a difference. You're sharing the need or maybe a gap that the organization has that they can fill when you are going to have that solicitation. So they are similar but different. Mid-level has a little bit less, and you're varying how you're doing it. Same sort of thing. Phone calls, emails, unless you know that the donor prefers one over the other.
Thank you. So, Lauren, you can be thinking about this, and I have a question for Jeff. So, you be thinking about the best script you use to introduce yourself to a donor
Mm-hmm.
via email or phone. And then, Jeff, I've seen a number of questions about board members. What do I do if board members don't want to help with significant asks, or board members are scared of sending mail to people they know? How do we bring those folks along to understand what is relational fundraising and what is their role in that process?
yeah. Well, we've got a white paper on that. So that's number one. Go to our website because we have a white paper on how to get your board on board. But because it really starts at the beginning of the relationship with a board member. So really good organizations who are amazing at major gifts, mid-level fundraising in general, are when new board members come on, they train their board members on what they do and how they do it in the fundraising space and how important they are to bringing in the people that they influence and being able to make asks and all the different other things that we want our board members to do. So right when they come in, part of their orientation is this is how we feel about fundraising. It is something to be celebrated, not to feel like it's a necessary evil. So that's number one. But if you're trying to bring your board into it, I would do a reset with the whole board and talk about the philosophy of fundraising, why they are important to it, and what you expect from them uh, as a fundraising organization. So expectations are really important. Our board members want to know exactly what are they supposed to do. And some of them might be uncomfortable, but they also might want be able to take direction and learn. And you can train your board members, especially in permission-based asking, on how to best reach out to their contacts and or donors and make it comfortable for them. And there will be some that just won't. And that's okay too. But that's where I would start. I mean, if you could start at the beginning of when a board member comes in, orient them to what you're trying to do, your philosophy of fundraising, how they're important, all those things, then they'll start already from the very beginning going, okay, this is my role in this. This is why it's important, and really address all of their fears around it. But I really do urge you to get that white paper because it does cover all of those things about what do you do with board members.
Yeah, what helped me once is to get allies on the board who understood this and were in support of me, and they were the ones that led the charge of how we're from now on how we're going to be as a board. That really helps.
Yeah.
All right, Lauren, what do I say on those phone calls, intro emails? Give us some language.
Well, I'm also going to put a plug in for if you join the certification course, there's going to be scripts and there's going to be resources for you in there. But the script would be, an introduction of who you are and that you're their contact at the organization, that they can reach out to you and that you want to serve them by learning what they care about at the organization, and how you can reach them. So it would be hi, my name's Lauren. I'm want to call and thank you so much for your support of our organization. And I'm calling to introduce myself as your contact here. Do you have a few minutes for a phone call? And then you wait for them to respond. And you can even say, if you have a history of maybe phone solicitation, this isn't going to be a solicitation call. I'm not calling to ask you for money. Do you have a few minutes for me to learn a little bit about what inspired you to give to our organization? And then from there, you want to have some questions that you want to learn and make sure that you're not spending an hour and a half on the phone with these people. Keep it 10 minutes. Find out if they'll share what started their interest in giving to you, what other areas that they like about your organization, if they have questions, and then how you can reach them. And then, you want to follow up with is it okay if I reach out to you from time to time to share the impact of your giving? Great. Karen, I want to thank you so much for your support of our organization. It has made such an impact over the past 30 years that you've been giving, and you've really helped all of the pets in our area find homes that we've been able to bring in, and I want to thank you for that. And so that's how you would kind of that script of that phone call, and really your emails or your intro letters would follow something very similar. Introduce yourself, what you want to know, and that you want to get in touch with them.
Yeah.
Thank you. And a quick clarification, Eric says, when you say 6 to 8 a year for mid-levels, do you mean personalized touch points or total touch points?
So yes. Total touch points for your tier A, you want those personalized, right? You're personalizing the open and the close of the email. And for your tier B, it's going to be a personalized open if you can. And your tier C, that's where you can do kind of the email merges and send letters so that they're not coming from MailChimp or whatever your marketing team is using. They are coming from you, but you can be a little bit more efficient in sending those out.
Thank you. Jeff, do you think there's value to mid-level giving societies? My institution has one, but also has budget limitations for events programs for this group. So the donors basically just get an e-newsletter benefit from the give, but other ones have many more benefits. So talk about
I
giving
guess it would,
societies.
yeah, I guess it would depend on the type of organization, and the history of that. Like many arts organizations have these different types of societies. The problem I have with that is that a lot of times it focuses on, well, if you're a part of this society, you get X, Y, Z, and then you're that's what you're giving for. It's so it becomes very transactional versus towards the mission of the organization. And so I would tend to err not using societies and different things like that because I've also seen where you've developed the society and then there's like a whole department around the society members and the team working on that they become like, well, these are our donors, and I'm not going to move them over to anything else or do anything because we're being evaluated on how well we're keeping up with the society and how it's growing. So, so it happens. So what happens as a strategy becomes a department or something that it takes away from the overall fundraising program. So I would steer clear of those things, use and try to the whole idea, especially on the tier A, is really trying to get to know who these donors are, finding out what their passions and interests are, and then matching that up with all the programs and projects you have and delivering those offers to them. And that's much more powerful than are they a member of the society that gets some kind of tchotchke, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and if you already have a giving society, then just make sure it's not creating this annual giving, give
Yeah,
$200 every year, and there's never
yeah.
any
That's another good
fundraisers.
point. It's like,
Mhm.
oh, at this level, and then you train the donor in a sense to give at
Only
that
give that
level
much.
and
Yeah,
renew at that level,
yeah.
and anything else is, well, that's not what I'm in. I'm in this society thing.
Great. So, Lauren, we're a small nonprofit. For us, over 1,000 is a major gift. And mid-level, probably for us, will be between 250 to 1,000 tier. Still is important for us. And we don't have another person to cultivate mid-level either at this time. Is this class for us? Advice. So we don't have a lot of staff. What do we do? Do we want to take a mid-level course? What do we do about building out both those systems? Any thoughts?
Yeah, so I think, if you have somebody who is a major gift officer, could they split their time and have, some mid-level, kind of those, maybe it's the 750 to 999 as, maybe what I would say, maybe like a tier D, right? So they're going to get even less kind of personalized cultivation and stewardship that a major gift plan would get so that you are engaging those because those are your pipeline, right? Like those are the donors that if they go away, if they filter away, that's where your value attrition, you
Mhm.
see a lot of loss in that. But when you can be top of mind with them because you're communicating with them, because you're making those one-on-one connections, you will see that movement up into major gifts. You'll see the strength in um, that
Mhm.
foundation of that mid-level group. So recognizing that your time is limited, you have limited budgets, you have limited staff. So how can you marry the both of these to work? And maybe it's somebody who's doing something else can split their time and take on some of this mid-level relationship building. Is there a way that you can use this as professional development for somebody on your team who might want to be a gift officer? There you can be, I've seen some really creative ways that organizations have built in mid-level to their program so that then when that ROI starts to happen, right, that the gifts start coming in, they start seeing somebody who was giving $700 give 10,000 because
Mhm.
somebody had talked to them, right? Then you can start to make the case for, oh, we need a dedicated person for this.
Thank you so much. Um, Quick question here. If you're, and sorry,
Nice.
make sure we're all awake this
Yeah.
afternoon. So Jeff, if you have someone who's new to your organization, a new MGO,
Yeah.
do they start the whole process of qualifying over again, or do they rely on efforts from previous people, case by case basis?
Well, if the portfolio is already qualified, that's great. They can move right into a qualified portfolio. Um, typically, that isn't always the case when we run it. Usually, when we first start with an organization working with them, and they say they have a whole qualified caseload, I would say maybe a third of them are qualified. So that means they have 100 of them that are not or more. Um, but if you're new, it doesn't really matter because if they are truly qualified and you've gone through that process, I mean, that's a great situation for someone to come into. Otherwise, but you know, when if they're new, that's a great opportunity, of course, to get to know your donors and have an introductory letter and a follow-up and all of those things with the qualified. And then you'd also find out how qualified those donors are as well. Now, I would assume that any new major gift officer would look in their donor records, and because the former major gift officer did such a great job of entering all the information about all their interactions, they would know, hey, this donor is really qualified. Look at the history of the conversations we've had. Unfortunately, a lot of major gift officers that go into it, they see hardly anything put in those databases. And so they don't know if they're qualified. And so I would go through that process as the new person of really making sure these donors that are in that portfolio are truly qualified.
So, in just to review this again, in mid-level, they're qualified if they're giving at the mid-level level.
They're already, yes.
Major gifts, you want to qualify them that they want a two-way communication into your major gift caseload. So,
That's right.
Lauren, along with what Jeff is saying, how do you qualify a qualifying phone call or email? Like, how do you use a scoring system? Like, how do you say, check, they're qualified?
Do they want to hear from you? Do you know what they care about? And I would even go so far as if they've agreed to hear from you again, qualified, they're qualified, and you know that your next call, your next step is to find out what they care about. In major gifts is really what it is. And this is not a static, set in stone process, mid-level or major gifts. You're going to get somebody who's like, I would love to hear from you. Great. And then you'll never hear from them again. Right. So in a year, go back and review, and maybe you do a check-in and say, hey, like I've been sending you some things. How's it resonating? Is there anything that works for you that doesn't? And then you can decide if donors need to be moved on or off caseloads based on that. So if a donor says that they'll hear from you, consider them qualified, and then, go from there.
So on mid-level, Lauren, so we're not expecting all of them to respond and be qualified in the sense that they want a two-way relationship. So question, can we discuss strategies for 1/3 of mid-level donors who do not respond to the set of touch points? Would there be a time to resend a survey in a number of years? So fresh ideas, like don't expect all people to respond, but what are some fresh ways to keep reaching out?
Absolutely send that survey. If that questionnaire didn't get answered the first go around, in a year, year and a half, go ahead and send it again with a note of, you've been hearing from me for the past year, year and a half. I want to check in. How's it resonating? Would you mind taking a look and filling out this questionnaire for me to help me with my communication with you to find out what's resonating, what's not? Those check-in calls and emails I've seen gift officers have really great success with. I've also seen if your organization does like three things, right? You focus, if you're kind of a scientific environmental organization, you focus on research, and you focus on the environment, and you focus on animal welfare. You might send a little update that says, here's a little update on these three things. Does one of these speak more strongly to you? Do you find yourself resonating with one of these? See if you can find ways to get them to respond. You'll always want to include a pull question. It's something for them to respond back to you, right? You want to give them a reason to hit reply on that email, to give you a phone call back, continuing to build that. But yeah, in maybe 2 years, if you never hear from somebody and you've got more people to add onto your caseload, maybe you do a refresh and you take those non-responsive donors out and you bring on the people to see if they do want to respond.
Thank you. There's so many great detailed questions here. We could spend the next hour, you all. I'll tell you, these courses, these certification courses, they're not, I've been to a lot of trainings and it was so irritating because it's all kind of talking up here, like you should send touch points, you should do a survey, you should do this. But our training gives you the timing, the way to track the timing of all your touch points, all of your qualification process, the tools, the templates, the process, the language, the practicing on permission based. So it's all in there. But maybe a way to close out, Jeff, we had some questions about like how do I figure out how to divide up if I have a small staff or multiple people, mid-level, major gift, plan giving. And I pop the serve our free assessment, donor assessment into the link. So how does that help folks with sort of their FTE makeup?
Well, I mean, the assessment that we do for any organization that qualifies, uh, definitely the donor data tells you how many mid-level major gift officers you should have. So by the number of donors that you have, by the value of those donors, we'll be able to tell you through that assessment if you're wondering, like, I don't know if we can handle two major gift officers, or I'm thinking about hiring another mid-level officer, but I'm not sure. That analysis would be able to tell you. Because if you have enough donors and they're of value, have enough value, you'll be able to justify the ROI on whether or not you should hire someone. So yeah, that's a great benefit of the assessment is that it really does tell you how many people you should have.
Thank you. Quick question here, Lauren. Are phone calls effective nowadays? I've had donors telling me not to call as there are too many spam calls.
Yes, 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 yes. Phone calls are effective. We hear it from gift officers. I hear it of like, "Ugh, I don't want to." And that is the way that you're going to have the best connection with somebody short of meeting them in person, right? You're never going to have a heart to heart over email, or it's going to be difficult. They are effective. Sometimes I've had a gift officer send a text ahead of when they're calling to let them know when they're going to call. Let somebody know that you're going to call. You can give them the opportunity to schedule time with you to talk. But yes, donor calls are still a great way to reach people.
So when you call, which attempts do you leave a voicemail? Which ones do you just end the call?
So if you're making three, you're going to leave a voicemail. You're not going to leave a voicemail, and then you're going to leave a voicemail. If you're only making two, if it's like a call, email, call, you're going to leave a voicemail for both of those.
So as you can see, we have a very systematic, structured way that helps you get your arms around all of this. So Jeff, close us out with one final word of wisdom, and then I'll close out our webinar. This is
Well, I mean, from the questions, I can tell that people are hungry for some really good, solid, actionable information. And so I really do urge you to take this course. It the reviews on these courses that we've created are tremendous. I go to conferences all the time and people stop me in the hallway and say, Jeff, this course that I took was the best thing I ever did for my career. It really helped me go to another level. So I really urge you to take it. If you're on the fence with it, you will learn a ton about how to go about this work. And professionally, it's a great move because you yourself are going to learn so much. It'll catapult you into the next level of learning about mid-level fundraising. So I urge you to take it.
just do it. Well, thank you, Jeff and Lauren. That was fantastic. Thank you all for being an incredible group. Just great questions. I wish we could be here another 45 minutes to answer all of them. I feel bad to leave you hanging. But we've got a lot of white papers and materials. Come to our courses. They will give you everything you need to build everything out. So thank you for being with us today. As a reminder, you'll receive a recording of this webinar and the slides in an email in the next few days. To register for our upcoming session of the certification course in mid-level fundraising, visit us at theveritasgroup.com, link you see in the slide, and use that code August25ML promo to get that $200 off. But you need to do it by next Friday. All right.
All right.
So as always, we're available to assist you with any questions, and you can email us at academy@veritasgroup.com. So I hope to see you in upcoming course. Hope to see you on upcoming webinars. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful week.
See ya.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.